Ukraine's Air Force just pulled off something unbelievable. For years, Russia has launched relentless missile and drone attacks, testing Ukraine's defenses. But this time, Ukraine had a new trick up its sleeve, one that caught everyone off guard. France's MIRAGE 2000 fighter jets, written off by some as outdated, just proved their worth in the most intense way possible. In a single night, they turned the tide against one of the largest Russian missile barrages in over a year. So how did these decades-old jets pull off what even cutting-edge systems struggle to do? And what does that mean for the future of air combat in Ukraine? Let's break it down. Just recently, the Mirages were deployed to be used in anti-air defense, particularly against Russian long-range missile and drone attacks. A report suggested that Ukrainian pilots who trained in France for months on how to fly the aircraft definitely show they've learned their lessons. The aircraft were pivotal in taking out cruise missiles, and President Volodymyr Zelensky applauded the pilots as well as France for providing the planes. But what made these planes so successful? How do they compare to contemporary aircraft that Ukraine has fielded so far, or that Russia is using? And what does using airplanes in this manner indicate for the future of the war? Stay tuned to find out. But let's first delve a bit deeper into the specifics of the attack and why the planes were seemingly so important they had to be singled out as a major contributing factor to Ukraine's defenses. In the early hours of March 7th, Russia launched yet another in the line of its numerous and potentially devastating long-range strikes. Battlefield reports from the attack suggested that Russia used as many as 67 missiles of various types and over 194 long-range drones to conduct the attack. These numbers make it one of the largest strikes in the past 12 months, at least by sheer numbers of long-range ordnance involved. Ukraine deployed its anti-air defense systems on the ground, including the Patriots, their own drone systems, electronic warfare, and traditional anti-air batteries. But the real action seemed to be happening in the air, where Ukraine called in its new stockpile of Dassault Mirage 2000 jets that were donated by France and arrived less than a month before. Ukraine also deployed a number of its F-16s to provide a vital supportive role. The aircraft were used to locate, intercept, and remove any larger threats posed to vital military and civilian compounds targeted in the strikes. According to a social media post by Zelensky shortly after the attack was seemingly repelled, the aircraft was successful in intercepting cruise missiles, which could have done considerable damage had they managed to strike their targets. So how did they do it? Well, there are only a few ways an airplane is actually useful against a high-speed cruise missile. Fighter jet interception of a cruise missile relies on a host of sophisticated technologies, each designed to enhance detection, tracking, and engagement effectiveness. The process begins with detection and tracking, where multiple systems need to work in unison. The ground-based radar emits radio waves that bounce off objects, allowing operators to detect and determine the missile's location even when it flies at low altitudes, though its low radar visibility due to a streamlined design means it often avoids detection. The fighter jets here constitute an airborne early warning system, being equipped with high-performance radar and communication systems of their own, which can cover vast areas and detect threats early, providing the fighter with critical situational awareness. Once the missile is detected, sensor fusion comes into play. This refers to the integration of data from these different sensor sources, creating a unified, accurate picture of the missile's position, speed, and trajectory. This is vital because no single sensor can capture all necessary information, and combining data enhances precision and allows the operation to move into the next stage. When it comes to engaging the missile, the fighter jet must be in an optimal position, a process that involves advanced maneuvering capabilities. Here, the jet's agility is key in positioning itself effectively within the missile's projected path. Luckily, both the F-16s and the Dassault Mirage 2000 were made to be as maneuverable and as fast as possible. This allows them to achieve speeds similar to that of the missile and allows them to approach it from different angles due to the aforementioned guidance systems. The primary weapon for interception is typically an air-to-air missile that employs active radar homing or infrared guidance. Active radar homing means that the missile carries its own radar system to seek out and lock onto the target, making it highly autonomous in tracking even if the target changes course. Infrared guidance, on the other hand, relies on the heat signature of the missile, allowing it to track targets based on their thermal emissions. These guidance systems are crucial because they ensure the missile remains locked on to the rapidly moving and often evasively maneuvering target. Typically, cruise missiles don't have built-in maneuvering protocols, instead following a predetermined trajectory that can be accounted for if you know the general target and the source of the missile. While this would generally make them easier to intercept in principle, missiles do have a trick up their sleeve. Most cruise missiles have relatively low thermal emissions and an aerodynamic design that also implements radar dispersal surfaces. Both of these systems make them more difficult to pick up by conventional anti-air missiles. That's where the next aspect of using fighter jets for missile interceptions comes in. Advanced computers on board can use data links to provide continuous updates between the launching fighter and the missile. The data stream syncs the missile's intended target and trajectory with the jet's own targeting system. This allows the pilot to make adjustments in real time to the missile's flight path based on the jet's more comprehensive sensor data. Another aspect of missile interception is dealing with electronic countermeasures, ECM, techniques, used by hostile missiles to confuse or evade detection by emitting signals that can disrupt radar and guidance systems. The interception system must be robust enough to overcome these challenges through advanced signal processing and countermeasures, ensuring that the missile system remains on target despite any deliberate attempts to mislead its tracking systems. In cases where the engagement window is exceedingly short, the fighter might resort to a direct gun engagement. Although this method is far less effective against a high-speed, small target like a cruise missile due to the precision and rapid response required, it underscores the complexity and layered approach necessary in missile defense strategies. However, there's another aspect of electronic countermeasures that come into play when fighter jets are deployed against missiles and drones. In cases where drones can be programmed to seek out additional targets or are manually guided, the initial attack can be a ruse to lure out the aircraft. Then the attacker uses a second layer of missiles and drones to target the jets themselves. This turns the aircraft from supportive radar systems to active targets, making it necessary for the jets to carry its own suite of missile countermeasures. Somewhat unfortunately for Ukraine, electronic countermeasures could be particularly worrying for its prospects, and is a part of the reason why the Mirage 2000s can become increasingly useful as the first line of defense against long-range strikes. You see, a big part of why Ukraine has been so insistent on receiving F-16 fighter jets as part of NATO donations was due to their advanced onboard radar and tracking systems. In particular, the contemporary versions of F-16s, those that were used by NATO countries and then subsequently retrofitted and donated to Ukraine, carry the AN/ALQ-131 electronic countermeasures pod. The AN/ALQ-131 is considered one of the most robust and future-proof designs in radar jamming and countermeasure capabilities. Developed to jam and confuse adversary radar systems, the AN/ALQ-131 works by emitting deceptive signals that interfere with the tracking and targeting capabilities of hostile sensors. Essentially, the 131 creates false results on the enemy's radar and other targeting systems, generating noise that the enemy must account for when deploying strikes. The system was considered a pivotal upgrade to the Ukrainian Air Forces when it first came alongside the F-16s. Previously, the Ukrainian aircraft were of Soviet design, using older third-generation and fourth-generation aircraft left over from the collapse of the Soviet Union. While the Ukrainian military did its best to keep the equipment in shape, these aircraft weren't compatible with Western anti-radar designs like the AN/ALQ-131. This meant that when the war in Ukraine started in 2022, the Air Force needed to take flight with pretty much zero reassurance that they could survive Russia's overwhelming long-range strikes and missiles. Before the procurement of the F-16, the Ukrainian Air Force wrote off 75 jets, at least according to a report by Forbes, with most of these losses due to their inability to repair the heavily damaged